I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Today, we are talking about 8 key factors that prevent us from reaching our goals, and specifically, we're talking about weight loss goals. So these are 8 common issues that I see over and over again that are at the root of what's holding us back, things that we're not even aware of, we don't even realize that we're doing them or not doing them, yet these 8 issues are holding us back from being our strongest, healthiest, fittest self. And you know how it feels. It's incredibly discouraging to feel like you're doing everything right when it comes to diet, exercise, what you're putting in your body, how much you're moving, and you feel like you've got all these pieces in place, yet you're still not seeing the results that you think you should be seeing. And it can be challenging to want to stick with that program. It can be really tempting to say, why even bother? So there's some things that we want to first make sure that you're doing everything possible. And then the other thing that we'll look at too is there might be a lot more progress. We're just measuring the wrong thing. So in my years of working with clients and diving deep and looking at their behaviors, what their goals are, what barriers keep coming up, there's always at least one of these not so obvious reasons behind what they see as a plateau. And what they think is a plateau, I'm doing everything right, often isn't, because they're not doing everything right, but it can take some searching to figure out what that is. And the answer to what the issue is, it's often in the afterthought of our daily routines. So we were putting so much time and effort into what our schedules are and what we're planning for, but there's these little things that we're doing or not doing throughout our day that might seem completely unrelated to our waistline or how strong we are or how our clothes fit, but these little things can be the reasons that we're not seeing the results we want. So here are 8 common issues that might be holding you back from being your leanest, fittest self. So number 1, are we measuring the right thing? If the scale is dictating your fitness success, the answer is probably no. So stepping on the scale can be an effective way to keep ourselves in check. It can help us see if there's a trend up or down over time, but that number on the scale doesn't tell us the full story of what those pounds are made of. So if you've been hitting the gym, you've been doing a lot of strength training, you've been going out to boot camp in the park, you're building a lot of muscle mass, that's fantastic. That muscle is what's burning so many calories, keeping us very metabolically active and making it easy to lose body fat. But you might not see the scale change that much because as you're dropping body fat, if you're also gaining muscle mass, the scale may not budge. Or it might even go up a couple of pounds if you've gotten a lot stronger. So it's okay to use the scale as a gauge, especially if it's looking at over the weekend or over the holidays or something like that, kind of as a accountability tool. But keep in mind that the scale is just an estimate. So it's an estimate of where we are in terms of body fat, muscle, bone density, hydration. Even if you have a scale that measures body fat, they're not completely accurate. They're not completely precise, especially the ones that most of us have in our homes. So to that note, if you are investing in a scale or if you have a scale, having one that does measure body composition is going to be a notch better, because then you are seeing an idea of percent body fat and you can kind of determine, okay, well, my weight went up or my weight isn't changing that much, but I am seeing that trend that percent body fat is going down on the scale readout, then that's good. Again, the body fat scales that we have at home typically aren't 100% accurate, but they're at least going to show that trend. So it helps you see that number of total pounds, but then you can also look and see, okay, where's that percent body fat trending? Is it going up? All right, well, that's probably not a good thing. But if that percent body fat is trending down, no matter what that total weight reads, that's a good thing. So number 1 reason that we can be interfering with our own successes, we're simply measuring the wrong thing. So not letting the scale alone dictate our fitness success. The other thing I would say is go find other ways that you're measuring your progress in terms of weight. And so it may be that specific pair of jeans that only fits when you're in tip-top shape. All right, we'll use those as your gauge. It might be completely unrelated to size is what you're measuring your fitness and your wellness success. If you are sleeping better through the night, if you're not craving sugar or looking for a nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if your energy is a lot more solid, if your mood is better, your disposition's better because you've been eating better and taking better care and exercising more, those are all ways that we want to measure our success way more than the scale. So that's number one, not letting the scale dictate our fitness success and finding other ways that we are measuring that. The second reason, and this is probably the biggest thing that I find is the contributor to people who feel like you're doing everything right in terms of diet and exercise, but you're still not seeing that shift in how your clothes fit and how your body composition feels, and you're pretty sure you're not seeing the trends going in the right direction. A huge factor in this is sleep. So reason number two, you're not getting enough sleep. So this is huge. This is, if you feel like you've got everything in check in diet and exercise, then I highly recommend looking really closely at your sleep patterns. And I put sleep equally as important. It's basically that third pillar of wellness: diet, exercise, and sleep. It's so important that study after study show us that when we're sleep deprived, we eat more, period. Or we're driven to eat more, and we'll have to use a lot of willpower or resistance not to. On average, it's more than 500 calories a day more that we eat when we're sleep deprived. But here's the thing, even if you've got willpower of steel and you say, okay, well, I didn't get enough sleep, but I'm really, exerting all the discipline that I have and I'm not overeating, I'm not succumbing to that, it's still harder for our bodies to shed extra body fat when we are chronically sleep deprived. And so there's been studies where we look at people in metabolic chambers and we're looking at all the conditions are controlled. So we know how much they're eating, how much they're moving, and the calorie deficit has been controlled, and the calorie deficit for each of these is the same. So that means they're apples to apples, we're comparing it accurately. The one variable is sleep. And in these groups, when they're comparing and they're controlling for a deficit in calories, how much exercise we're getting in, what we're eating, all of that is the same. And that one factor that changes is sleep. The people who are chronically sleep deprived lose less body fat and significantly less body fat. So no matter how much discipline you're throwing in there, you're sleep deprived, you're craving carbs, but you don't give in to it, that's great. It's still harder. Your body is still hanging on to that body fat more when we don't get adequate sleep. So what does that much rest look like? This is my biggest challenge personally. It is incredibly hard for me to get these number of hours in. It's 7 hours a night. For some people, this is really easy. It's not a hard pillar for them to reach for, and diet or exercise might be a lot harder. For me, sleep is my biggest challenge. So aiming for 7 hours of sleep a night, and if that's one of your challenges also, I know that it's easier said than done. What I do, and I've found works for me, is I find that I get caught up doing something. I'll get caught up whether it's in a project or, watching a movie at night or just, in a conversation or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, it's really 2 hours past when I was planning to go to bed. So looking at your schedule, because most of us know about when we need to wake up tomorrow morning. So backing it out, what time do you need to start winding down so that your head is hitting the pillow and you're still going to get at least 7 hours of sleep? So setting an alarm actually that night to go off when it's about an hour before you need to start winding down and getting ready for bed. So if your goal is to be in bed for 10, setting that alarm for 9 p.m. to tell you all right, wrap it up. There's a fantastic book by Arianna Huffington. It is called The Sleep Revolution. And we actually did a sleep challenge based on the Sleep Revolution in my column, my NOLA.com Times-Picayune column here in New Orleans, where we followed a lot of the recommendations that Arianna Huffington gives in The Sleep Revolution. So if you haven't read it and sleep is your issue, I highly recommend it. Some of the key things that she recommends, one is to kind of start winding down in that time before you're planning to go to bed. And for some people, that might be a relaxing bath. For all of us, though, it's going to mean not having electronics, at least in that 30 minutes, ideally hour window before bedtime. So the light that is coming off of our electronics, whether it's the TV, the smartphone, iPad, whatever it is, these are stimulating and they are working against us as far as helping us to start that soothing process and start that process to start to fall asleep. So her other giant recommendation for better sleep is to not have our smartphones by the bed when we sleep. So this is a game changer. This is a hard thing to get used to, but it's something that is very effective, because how many of us use our smartphones also as our alarms to wake us up in the morning? But at night, if you look over to see what time it is in the middle of the night and you see there's an alert, there's a message, there's a text, or our entire lives are in these phones. And so it's really easy to get distracted with that, either at night as we're supposed to be going to sleep, or in the middle of the night when we pick it up and look at to see what time it is. It can easily stimulate us, get us out of that deep sleep, and get our brains, swirling again with the thoughts of what's coming up for the next day. So her recommendation, which I think is fantastic, and I've done it. My phone is not sleeping in the other room right now as we speak. It's something that I'll start incorporating again. She recommends putting your phone in the other room so we're not tempted to look at it. It can just be right in the next room. It doesn't have to be far. And get a regular alarm clock. So like an old-fashioned alarm clock, still one that doesn't have that green or that blue light, but get an old-fashioned alarm clock, use that to wake us up. And then the first thing we're not looking at also when we wake up is our phones. So sleep, I cannot emphasize enough how important sleep is when we're looking at weight loss goals, wellness goals, our mood, our immune system, all of these things that are going to play a giant role. Sleep is going to be key, but getting that sleep we need doesn't just happen. So we've got to plan for good sleep, just like we plan for good nutrition, good exercise. All right, so reason number 3 is you're stressed. And I get it. We can't change this. We can't change the things that cause stress. Those things are still going to be there, but we can absolutely change how we respond to these, how we let ourselves react to them, and how we let ourselves feel. So we have an entire podcast dedicated to dealing with stress and eating to beat stress. How do we let anxiety not overcome and sabotage our health? And how do we not become our own worst enemies in that? So if you haven't listened to it already, we do have an entire separate podcast devoted to this. But in a nutshell, when we feel stressed, and that's whether or not we really should or not, whether or not that situation really is stressful or really is a big deal, when we feel stressed, our bodies still react the same way, whether or not it's really a reality or not. So when we feel stressed, our bodies release hormones that increase our appetite. And so not only do they make us hungrier, and that's when we get a lot of those cravings that strike when we're stressed, these hormones that are surging also make it easier for our bodies to preferentially store body fat, especially belly fat. So that term stress eating is vague. I don't love that term at all, but there's a few things that we all have in common, or most of us have in common when we talk about stress eating. For one, the foods we reach for typically are high in carbs. They cause that serotonin release, that kind of calming, feel good, kind of soothing sensation that we have. Also, when we have carbs combined with salt and fat, they activate certain areas of the brain that give us a temporary relief of anxiety or sadness. So if you haven't listened to our podcast, it's dedicated solely to eating to beat stress and why we self-sabotage. And if this is one of your issues, trust me, listen to that podcast. It'll definitely give you some insight as to why we do these things that we do, especially as it comes to stress. So we can't eliminate stress from our lives. We realize that, but noticing when you're having this reaction and what can you do to help control that reaction to stress. So some of the same things that we know are just good for us anyway. Regular exercise helps to reduce those stress hormones that increase body fat. Eating frequently through the day, surrounding ourselves with positive people, positive energy, all of these things that we can do to help manage our reaction, because the stressful situations are going to be there. How do we react to them? So reason number 4 that you might not be seeing the weight improvement that you're looking for is your medicine cabinet. So there are medications that can cause weight gain, or even if they're not causing us to gain weight, these meds make it harder to lose extra pounds. Now, some of these are really serious medications, and we absolutely are not saying stop taking these. And we're not even saying that you should, and definitely don't stop just on your own. But be aware that the medications we're about to talk about are related to weight gain, or at least making it really harder to lose weight. Talk with your doctor and or pharmacist and see what are other things are there other medications out there that might be as effective? Do you still need the same dose that you're currently taking? And then in some of these, we'll also look at lifestyle changes that may make it possible to dial back the dosage of the medication needed, or in some cases, hopefully it would be fantastic if you're able to stop taking them. So some of these medications that are really common that cause weight issues include blood pressure medications, steroids, antidepressants, mood stabilizers, birth control pills, menopausal hormonal replacement medications, and diabetes meds like insulin and some oral diabetes drugs. So again, like we said, these are some serious medications, and none of these are any that we would say just stop taking, especially not for something as not insignificant, but we do not want to stop taking these because they're causing weight gain. But being aware, number one, that taking these medications can make it easier to gain weight and harder to lose weight. Once you know that, you got to really tighten it up. So tightening up as much as you can, food and exercise, because you know that you're going to be predisposed to struggles in that area with these medications. The other thing is, especially ones like the diabetes medications, blood pressure medications, are there other diet and lifestyle changes you can make that can help to improve blood pressure, blood sugar, and hopefully reduce the reliance on some of these medications? So talking with your doctor again before you're making any changes, because again, many and most of these medications aren't optional, but being aware that they can make weight gain easier and weight loss harder, and talk with your physician and your pharmacist to see what options can be better for you and what other lifestyle changes can you incorporate so you might be able to reduce your reliance on these. All right, so the number 5 reason that we often aren't seeing and achieving our weight goals is we simply underestimate weekend splurges. So you may just think that you're taking weekends off or you're having a cheat day on Saturday, but especially if that is on a regular basis, every weekend is a splurge, or every Saturday or Sunday is a cheat day, you might be chasing those extra calories, trying to chase them off all week long. So, and many of us, if not all of us, have been there. Monday through Thursday or Friday, you keep things really tightened up and you feel like you're on track with diet, with hopefully sleep, with exercise, and you're pretty happy with where things are by Thursday or Friday. You splurge over the weekend, and by Monday, your weight is, in some cases 5 pounds up, 8 pounds or more, and you're chasing that all week long. And then Thursday, Friday, okay, that's back down to where it was the week before, but now the weekend's here again and it's another splurge. So how much are you doing this and really going in circles and chasing things? So if that splurge is really a special occasion, enjoy it, of course. But if that splurge is such a regular basis that you're not actually having any forward movement, you're just having this circular little bit of drop, and then it swings back up, and then you're chasing it for that drop again by the next week. If you're seeing the same cycle week after week after week, what do we need to do to help offset that? So when we talk about weekend splurges, I'm not a fan of cheat days or even a cheat meal. I think that a couple of reasons. When someone says that is a cheat day, a lot can go wrong in an entire day. And some of the things that people have shared that they will save up all week and really splurge on that cheat day is just off the charts when we're looking at carbs or sugars or salt. And so we don't need that. And it's, to me, not a healthy thing to restrict during the week and then have one cheat day that is just completely off the rails. So I don't like cheat days, and I don't even really like cheat meals. And quite frankly, I don't like the word cheat because it implies that we're doing something bad. And what I like is keep things in check as much as we can nutritionally, the things that we know are optimal ways to fuel our body and live our lives centered on these most of the time. However, when we go out to eat, if whatever's your thing, your splurge, if that's, that good bread with butter or olive oil, or it might be the homemade pasta at your favorite Italian restaurant, or it might be the key lime pie at, whatever, when you're on vacation or whatever it is, whatever that splurge is that is special and it's worth it to you, that's that splurge, that's that indulgence. And I like to incorporate those into meals on that regular basis as a splurge, an indulgence, a treat. So I don't look at them as cheats at all, because I think that we can really optimally plan for these, negotiate for these, keep things in check a large amount of the time because we know we want to really indulge and splurge in these things that are really worth it to us. So that's really more kind of the approach that I'll take is, what are those things that are really worth it to you? Not the mindless stuff that you're just kind of plowing through at a party or at a dinner just because it's there, or the stuff they bring out to the table that it's free. but what's the chips, the breads, the crackers, but what's that stuff that's really worth it to you? So when you do that approach, and it might be one or two types of foods and a meal, that's really your splurge or your indulgence, we're doing a lot less damage than when we have an entire cheat meal or cheat day or an entire weekend off. So I would still keep things in check most of the time, but then allow yourself those indulgences and those splurges when you've kind of thought about it and it's a thing that's really worth it to you. So number 6 of the reasons that we are not seeing the weight loss goals that we think we should is we overestimate calories that we're burning. So just like we can underestimate our weekend splurges, we tend to overestimate how much we burn during exercise. We see it all the time. Someone runs a 5K and then they are knocking back all the post-race beer, snacks, whatever it is. It's really probably not so healthy for us, but they're like, oh, I just ran a 5K. If you actually looked at how many calories we burn, it might be, in some cases 250, 300, but we can easily put back 700 or more with some of the things that we're reaching for. So making sure that we are being honest with ourselves and how much we're actually burning. So if you're using the machine at the gym, it's probably not accurate. Those are just a general estimate, and they're usually a general estimate for someone that weighs between 180, 200 pounds. So if you're on the machine and that's not your weight, it might be really overestimating the calories burned. If you're using a fitness tracker, like a Fitbit or something like that, and it knows your age, your weight, your gender, and it knows your heart rate, and it's tracking this, it's a lot more accurate as far as tracking calories burned. One that I see often some misinterpretation with is food trackers like MyFitnessPal, and I love MyFitnessPal when people are tracking their diet, tracking their food intake through it. But when you add in your exercise, it can overestimate how much your quote, how much your window goes up of calories allowed is, the word that comes to mind, but to still meet your weight loss goals. So if you were normally eating, let's just say 1,400 calories, and that's working for you and you're rocking right along, and you find that you're dropping the body fat that you're looking for and your clothes are starting to feel better, and then you add in your exercise to MyFitnessPal, it can overestimate how many calories you burn. And I've seen this with clients so many times. They may come in and meet with me every few weeks, every month or so, and some that I've met with for a really long time, they might come in just every 3 months, every 6 months to kind of have that accountability check-in. And all of a sudden, their weight's going up or their clothes aren't fitting or whatever, what's happening? They've started adding in their calories in MyFitnessPal. It told them their exercise in MyFitnessPal. It told them they could consume more calories and still reach their weight loss goals, yet now they're gaining weight. And it's been mind-blowing to me because and I think what it is they wanted to believe it and they wanted to think they could eat more and still reach those weight loss goals. But of course, it's just numbers, it's just estimates. And so when you're plugging something like that in, use your common sense too of, your body, kind of what works and what range probably works for you. And knowing that when we plug into a lot of these food log programs, exercise programs, all these trackers, it's all still just an estimate of what we're really burning. So reason number 7 that we're not achieving our weight goals that we think we should is we're simply eating too much of a good thing. So we might surround ourselves, I see this, probably the culprit that I see the most is supplements and especially protein bars because they're so easy. And if you hate protein bars, this doesn't apply and you can't even understand it. But if someone finds a protein bar that they really like, it could be the best high protein, low sugar, all natural bar. They love the way it tastes. But if they're eating 2 or 3 of them a day, that can be too much. Most of them are very dense. They're squeezing a lot of calories into not a big space. So if we're having 2, 3 a day, in addition to everything else that we're eating through the day, those calories can quickly add up. I'll see this a lot too with whole grains. Quinoa is a big one for this. People are eating a lot of vegetables and all of a sudden they start trading out their spinach, their broccoli, their kale, and they're throwing in quinoa instead, and they're adding in more calories with this. So even when we're having healthy, nutritious foods, low sugar, all this, we still might be having more than what we need. So taking an honest look at what we're actually putting in our bodies. And then finally, number 8 of our reasons why we feel like we're not seeing and achieving our weight goals that we think we should is we're exercising daily, but what do we do in the rest of our day? So if you're hitting the gym every single day, and you're getting your exercise in, you're doing a workout class, you're, working with a trainer, you're doing boot camp out at the park, or you're going on a jog through your neighborhood, whatever it is, how are you spending the rest of those 23 hours in the day? So are you in meetings at your desk, in the car, watching TV? Sitting is what we're doing, a lot of it. And we burn about 30% fewer calories when we're sitting versus when we're standing. Plus, just when we sit, we have a negative impact on our body's sugar and fat metabolism. There's a quote that sitting is the new smoking. So what can we do to offset that? One of the things that I like to do is meet friends for a walk and talk instead of always meeting for coffee or always meeting for, dinner or whatever. And a lot of times we'll meet for a walk and talk and then go have a coffee or go have dinner or something like that. So combining multitasking there. If you've got a phone call that you've got someone to catch up with, you don't have to be writing in front of it, and it's, them well enough and they're comfortable if you might be a little breathy while you're walking, put your earbuds in and get out for a walk while you're catching up with whoever you wanted to catch up with, or conference calls that you have to listen in on and you just need to hear it, but you don't really have to be very interactive in it. Throw the earbuds in and go out for a walk or go on the elliptical or something like that. But how can we get a little bit of movement in the very simplest of ways, standing up while we're on the phone, taking phone calls, and standing up either at our desk or at our house, using kind of different triggers of getting us out of just sitting through the day. And we always hear the things of, don't email the person right next to you, walk down the hallway to their office, park further away, doing all these things. But the stairs does make, all of these little things add up. You tell yourself, and you're working out every day, but what are you doing the other 23 hours or whatever is the other window of time besides that workout? So the bottom line, if any of these 8 common pitfalls is sounding familiar to you, for most of us, it's probably at least one. It might be 2, 3, or more. Think about which ones apply most, which ones, if you started to implement behavior changes now, what would give you the most improvement, and what's going to be kind of like your biggest hit with these. And because if all of these sound like, man, where do I even start? I'm doing all of these things wrong. Don't get overwhelmed. What's that 1 or 2 behavior changes that you can make that's going to have the most impact? So think through that. And it's not enough just to say, I'm going to start sleeping more, or I'm going to start moving more, kind of with that non-purposeful exercise of the day. It's not enough just to say that we're going to start doing it. But what we really need to do is okay, commit to the actual behavior changes and steps that are going to result in that. So to say that we're going to sleep more, that sounds fantastic to say, but what are you going to do differently to help you sleep more? If you're going to really keep weekend splurges in check, that's a great, noble goal. But what are the little changes right when you're in the moment that you're going to be making to help keep those in check? So if any of these common 8 factors are things that you can relate to, things that are relevant and hitting home for you, think about what are those small strategic steps that you can take now to start to overcome these behaviors, overcome these habits that are holding you back. Doing this, even with just 1 or 2 of these key behavior changes over time, and you'll find yourself on that path to the stronger, fitter you without the frustration, without the self-sabotage. So I'm grateful for you for joining me today in this podcast. I hope you learned, and I hope that you are inspired by some of our conversation. And you can find links to my website for more information in the show notes of this episode. I'm Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you'd like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to www.mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life possible.